and welcome. Today is Tuesday, December 17th, and it is now 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Town of Highland Beach Town Commission meeting. Can we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Peters,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Present.
Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
Town Attorney Rubin,
Present.
and Commissioner Goldberg is absent today. Thank you.
If we could all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have an invocation today?
It appears
Probably not.
Morgan's not here, so.
Okay, so skip that. Okay. Any changes to the agenda for today?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. There are no presentations. I'd like to open the floor for public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing no public comments, moving on to ordinances. Item A, ordinance number 2024-003. This is a second reading of an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Town Code of Ordinances by adopting a new section 1-13, electronic publication of notices, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date. And just so we all recall, the first reading was at our last meeting, December 3rd, 2024.
Yeah, so it feels like we were just here, right?
Yeah.
This is second reading of the ordinance. You know, as we went over last time, this allows the town to publish legal notices on the county maintained website in lieu of publishing in the newspaper at a significant cost savings.
Any discussion among the commissioners? Wanted to open it up for public comments. Any public comments on this item? Okay. If there's no further discussion, can I have a motion?
I move we approve Highland Beach ordinance number 2024-003.
I second.
Okay. Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Yes.
and Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item B, proposed ordinance amending the Town Zoning Code, Chapter 30, relating to home-based businesses. An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending Section 30-67, uses permitted, special exception, and prohibited uses, and Section 30-131, definitions of terms of Chapter 30 zoning code of the Town Code of Ordinances to rename the existing home occupation use to home-based businesses and modify the regulations to ensure consistency with state law, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date.
So yes, so Ingrid will jump in, but we had a first read. You wanted a cross-reference to signs. That is an item G. It did go to the planning board. They approved the modification. And then it's before you today. Yes, Ingrid, go ahead. What do you say? You're shaking your head, yeah.
This is actually will be the first read.
This is first
Yeah,
reading.
this is.
What I say, first read?
Well, you said we
This is
had
second.
first reading. We had like
Yeah.
a
You did, okay.
Yeah, no worries.
intro.
Planning board,
Yeah.
got it.
I'll
Thank
be
you.
glad to provide just a little clarity on that. So, right, this ordinance will bring regulations regarding home-based businesses into compliance with state statute. I provided some history for you on page 15 of your packets. There was a House Bill 403. It was effective July 1st of 2021. That bill indicates that or prohibits local governments from licensing or otherwise regulating home-based businesses. This amendment to the code, is an initiative on your strategic priorities plan. We currently have regulations in our code regarding home occupation. So as I mentioned, when this was first brought to you on October 15th as a draft, I indicated we're moving from this terminology of home occupations to home-based businesses, and obviously we're making some changes to the regulations as well. Currently, the home occupations are permitted in all the residential zoning districts, and if you look at the ordinance, that will still be the same for home-based businesses. They'll be permitted in all residential zoning districts. The October 15th meeting, again, you were provided this as an introduction. The ordinance was introduced to you. The consensus from the commission was, as Marshall indicated, to add a cross-reference to the town's sign code, which is chapter 23. And if you look on page 19 of your packets, we've gone ahead and added under letter G, there's that last sentence, that's the cross-reference, and it reads, all signs shall comply with the regulations applicable to the residential properties set forth in chapter 23 of this code. So that's that cross-reference there. Given that we are changing the zoning code, the code requires that the planning board review it. They did recommend approval at their November 14th meeting. That motion carried 7-0. And the amendment, it is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan and the zoning code, which is criteria in the code. When you're amending the code, is it compliant with the town code? Is it compliant with the remaining code of ordinances? And it is. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, I think that this covers what we're talking about. It was really more about you have to live in the home. It's got to be primarily a residence. You can't buy a home in a residential area and use it strictly as a business.
Right. I mean, there are some, there's quite a few criteria there as far as who can work in the home-based.
Numbers
business.
of people,
Different than
yes.
It was previous, but yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
but-
again, yeah.
Yeah, but it has to be primarily a residence. And it also limits where you can park large machinery in essence, so that it can't be seen from the street or from the neighbors.
Yes. Right. I think you're talking about, are you talking specifically about letter D on page 19? Let's see.
There's the reference under C to heavy equipment.
There.
That has to be screened.
Okay, and there, under D, there's that reference to as viewed from the street.
Right.
That's more about the use of the residential dwelling. Yeah.
But I think this covers what we wanted it to cover, so thank you.
Yeah, I was just worried about signage, but you covered that for me, so you answered that question. I'm good.
And I think a lot of this had to do with just complying with.
It really, right. It was another state preemption issue. And so now we comply with the state statute. That's all there is to it, really.
And I'd like to open this up for public comment. You want to come?
Rick Greenwald, Tranquility Drive. Not really a comment, it's just a question. Where is licensing through? Highland Beach has nothing to do with licensing these businesses or charging fees for these businesses. This is all strictly through the county, or if appropriate, the state. How does all that work? I understand there's some local codes that it has to follow, but how does the town even know that there's a business there?
So we don't do that. We have the option that we could consider at some point for a business tax receipt. We do not do that here. Most of the municipalities surrounding and throughout Palm Beach County do. That would be one way to identify who's operating a home business and what type of business it is. Otherwise, there's no separate licensure for the business to operate at a.
Well, they do get a county.
Right. I was going to add, right, we have people coming into the town with the county application for business tax. On that application, there's a little section there for the municipal zoning sign off. So in the past, people have come in for that. I review it, make sure they're in compliance. They sign off on the regulations that we currently have for home occupations. And then I sign off on it and they bring it to the county.
Okay, again, not really a criticism, not anything. I'm just, having read it, I wasn't really clear how the process worked. I know a very long time ago when we first moved to Highland Beach, and my wife, who had a interior design business, wanted to run it out of a Highland Beach, out of our home address. It was actually not allowed at that time. And had to make arrangements to do it out of Boca and so on, which had a process. I have no objection to it being here, and obviously it has to comply with state statute. But it wasn't clear in how it worked or whether we were going to be interested in the future of actually licensing these businesses as a town and having possibly some further degree of control or at least knowledge over what was going on. I know even now, if you go on like Google Maps or one of those things, I mean, a whole bunch of businesses light up in town that I had no idea were businesses in town, but they're licensed somewhere enough that Google Maps knows about them anyway.
Google. knows
Anyway,
everything.
those were possibly not for today, but certainly future considerations because there seems to be a little bit of looseness in the process, perhaps. Thanks.
Any other comments? Hearing no comments, move forward.
I move we approve an ordinance of the town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending section 30-67, uses permitted, special exceptions, and prohibited uses, and section 30-131, definitions of terms, on a first reading.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next, item C, proposed ordinance amendment to the accessory marine facilities and seawall regulations. An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 6, Buildings and Structures of the Town Code of Ordinances by amending Section 6-128, approval required for bulkheads, seawalls, retaining walls, required notifications of abutting property owners to provide a maximum seawall cap and docket width, amending Chapter 30 zoning by amending Section 30-68 supplemental district regulations to provide a maximum height for boat lifts, a maximum extension for accessory marine facilities into canals and lakes, a maximum seawall cap and dock width, and ladder regulations, and amending Section 30-131 definition of terms to provide definitions that pertain to accessory marine facilities, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date. So we've discussed this topic quite a bit.
Yep, and it's been quick. We started in November of 2020. So I think we've covered a good discussion, analysis, debate, multiple reviews by the planning board, multiple reviews by the commission. We've had boat tours for commissioners and planning board members. We've had neighborhood meetings. So we've done a really good job, I believe, covering all of the bases, engaging the public to the greatest extent possible, and coming up with the best language. So Ingrid, you want to piggyback off that?
Just An overview of the staff report on page 26. Again, for anyone listening and all the residents that are here, I just thought I'd start off with just an overview of the public hearings in 2024. Again, this is all documented starting on page 26 of your packets. So just refresh the commission's memory a bit. On April 2nd, you had a discussion item to talk about the amendment concepts, right? These were amendment concepts to the accessory marine facility and seawall regulations of the code. The consensus from the commission was to proceed with amendment concepts number 1 through 4 and number 6. These are listed on page 26 on the table. And then you chose to do a no action option regarding concepts number 5 and 7. Concept number 5 was about the 10-foot side setback. And concept number 7 was about a maximum seawall height. So again, you chose not to move forward with those. Those were no action items. Then on September 17th of 2024, you all discussed the draft ordinance. You did make a motion, moving it forward to the planning board. Again, they are required to take a look at the ordinance, given it's an amendment to the zoning code. You wanted them to look at you moved forward again, the concepts 1 through 4, and you asked that the board discuss and provide more detailed information regarding ladders to include timing, placement, and whether they should be mandatory or voluntary. In addition, the commission had consensus to strike the new text that was included in that draft ordinance, which focused on floating vessel platforms and floating boat lifts. If you remember, the town manager had added some additional language that those types of floating platforms and lifts would have to comply with the single-family marine site setback. That was taken out, again, based on the commission's consensus. And then on November 14th of 2024, the planning board did recommend approval on the ordinance. Now, with regards to the ladders, the commission initially wanted, two different types of text, right? You wanted an encouraged type of regulation and then a required type of regulation. On page 27, we provided I guess, encourage, which is ladders are permitted on docks, seawalls, finger piers, and other mooring facilities. The planning board looked at your direction, and they did decide to go with this more of an encouragement. And you'll see this exact language on page 36 of the packet, which is the ordinance that is before you today. And we did have some housekeeping items. I referenced those on page 28. We're using the word designee where appropriate on pages 35 and 36 of the ordinance. I'm sure you all can appreciate, you don't want to list every staff person that may review something. So, and people's titles sometimes may change. So designee, we went ahead and added that where it's appropriate. And also attached to this packet for this particular item is the business impact statement, which is required by Florida statute. So there's a very lengthy history on page 28, which really goes back, as Mr. Labadie indicated, back to 2020, 2022. So I'll be glad to address any questions you may have.
Anybody want to start with the discussion?
No, but Ingrid, you told us that we can, if they have, a resident has a problem, they can always go to the planning board and state their case to try to change their exception or something like that.
Well, the way the code reads and the way the ordinance reads is that you still have to go before the planning board to get an approval for a seawall, a boat lift, a dock. It's all falls under this title of a special exception application, right? So yeah, you would still have to go before the planning board. And you may see some more variances come up because now we have thresholds, right? Where now we don't have how far you can extend out. We don't have a maximum height for an accessory marine facility. So we may see some more variances come forward. Again, that would be a separate application. The applicant would have to comply with the criteria in the code regarding variances. They have to show a hardship. But yeah, they could go before
Go to the board.
that would be a Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As I read this, it also sounded like if it's an unusual lot where you don't have a straight dock, where you come in at angles, because part of this also talks about you can't limit somebody's visual, which then it would truly be a special exception to the special exception. They could go and have a hearing.
Again, right, the criteria is reasonable visual access, right?
Well, but if you block it
Yeah.
completely, that's not reasonable.
Again, and I've mentioned this to the commission on various public hearings. We still have the provision in the code about the marine expert, right? So as I've mentioned, we've used a marine expert a few times. We had, and I know I pointed it out when we went on the marine visits. We had a boat lift that was at the end of the canal. And so we brought in the marine expert. I mean, there were issues where that boat lift was placed because when they got a permit like 12 years ago, it was approved at a certain location. And then they revised the location, but they did it as part of the building permit. They moved it a little bit further eastward, or further closer to the end of the canal. Typically, that would have to go back to the planning board if you're going to change the location. But it's about 12 years ago. The building department signed off on it. So given that sort of nuance, we brought in the marine expert to determine whether it wasn't going to impact the navigability of the waterway, to consider the reasonable visual, it's not impacting the neighbors, adjacent neighbors or the public. So again, the marine expert made that determination.
And did we keep the 25-foot setback for homes on large lots on the intracoastal?
Right, so that is not changing. Remember, that's a no action option. So right, currently, right now, if you're a single family zoning district, which a lot of those in the
Mhm.
northern part of the town are, that stays as is. So it is a 25-foot setback, marine site setback. Now, remember, if your lot size is between 50 and 70, then it's 15.
Right.
But a lot of those lots in the north, in the
Mhm.
Lido, majority of them are like 100 feet
Right.
width. So, but there are some that, are a little bit smaller. So
Yeah, but that was what most of the people seemed to want who lived in those areas.
we did get public comment, yes, regarding keeping the status quo on the marine site setback for single family zoning districts.
And floating docks. Dr. Greenwald was kind enough to invite me to look from his backyard. And it seems to me that when people have certain setbacks, they can put the floating dock beyond that. So then there's, in essence, no setback.
Right, so this ordinance does not deal with the floating vessel platforms or floating boat lifts, right? And I'll be happy to read it from the code, and I've referenced this several times. Section 30-68H as in Harry, letter 3, H1, number 6, it says floating docks are permitted, subject to conformance with all zoning code requirements herein and compliance with all applicable building codes. Now that's floating docks. That's not floating vessel platforms
Mhm.
or floating boat lifts. We have a special exception application, through the state. We have that application available on the town website where you can submit that application that you are indeed exempt, you are compliant with state statutes. Yeah, that's a separate.
Yeah, because, well,
itself.
to me, a floating dock is one that goes up and down with the tide.
And there are certain provisions in the state statute as far as dimensions and all of that.
Yeah, but what I was more thinking was a floating vessel platform, which there were some that had the docks that were the right sizes, but then they put a floating vessel platform and it goes right to the edge of their property. And just because it's not a dock doesn't mean it's not going to interfere with their neighbors' use of their property.
Right, again, that really.
Yeah, and we will come back and discuss that.
Yeah,
separately.
because you still have to get the vessel on and off the
Yeah,
floating
so
platform.
agreed. Again, it's another preemption issue that we're trying to navigate around, but that's gonna come back to you relatively soon.
Okay,
And I think
that's
that
good
was-
because I think that we need to specifically address that. But you're right, I'd like to
Oh.
see this get passed
Right.
and then we can
Right.
come
Right.
back and
Yes.
address that.
Yeah, and I understand the commission is interested in those setback issues as well.
And I think that was your consensus at the September
Mm-hmm.
17th, that it would be a separate issue that would come, back to the commissions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just one thing on the ladders. The way it's presently going to be executed or put into effect, if somebody wants to redo a dock or an area, is it going to be recommended to them that they put in ladders or say it's a preference? What's the rules going to be?
It's not a recommendation. So the way the ordinance reads right now, again, the commission could change it as you see fit. It's ladders are permitted on docks, seawalls, finger piers, or all other mooring facilities. It's permitted, it's not required. You can do it if you want it. That's how the regulation reads right now.
In noticing your references to other communities like Boca and so forth, where it's not only recommended, it should happen. What about the ones that don't do it? How do they handle it?
I mean, the other municipalities?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they handle it. I mean, right, I did provide you a handout here. Let's see, on page 41, just to give you perspective. Again, Manalapan is a similar regulation. Ladders are permitted on docks. That's their regulation. Gulfstream for docks in single-family residential district, ancillary structures such as swim ladders are permitted. So each municipality does handle it a bit different.
And which ones did you say it's required?
So for Boca Raton, for docks, they have to provide at least one ladder extending from dock surface to 2 feet below mean low water. For docks in excess of 50 feet in length, 2 ladders shall be provided. So they have an actual requirement. And Delray Beach as well. Again, that's on page 41 of your packets.
It's just troublesome from a safety perspective. I heard all the arguments about insurance and those kind of things, but it doesn't become an issue until something happens. And basically that's what concerns me the most.
I like the latter language, the way that it is presented today. I thought the discussion at the planning meeting was really good. I think this is a little bit similar to the changes in the setbacks. I don't think we have consensus, which was one reason we didn't move forward to changing the setbacks. I don't think we have consensus on the ladders either. There are arguments for, and we've had several residents strongly opposed to ladders, to requiring ladders. I personally have water frontage and I have 2 ladders. So there's nothing that says that you can't put ladders. And I know there are plenty of properties not required to put ladders, but they have installed ladders. And there was a good discussion at the planning meeting, and I want to point out that it was unanimous, the language that is presented here today. And the planning board member, Roger Brown, who shared a very moving example in favor of ladders, voted in favor of the language that we have here today. So I think this is a step forward. We're mentioning ladders in our regulations and we are saying that they are permitted. Concerns about overreach and potentially, someone accessing the property that you didn't, want to from the water. Those are all, very valid reasons as well. And a lot of residents feel very strongly about it. So I think given the fact that we really don't have a consensus on requiring ladders, the fact that the planning board unanimously approved this language and they had really good discussion about it. And I recommend people listen to that discussion. For all those reasons, I'm in favor of the language that's presented today.
Now, that's for single-family homes.
No, that's everything.
it's
It's everyone,
Townwide.
Yes,
townwide?
it is townwide. So, and most people have ladders. So without requiring them, most people do have ladders. So, and then those people who absolutely don't are just not going to have it. And there are at least 2 examples in our packet of towns that have gone the same direction that we are presenting today. Regarding floating docks, I do think it's a really important issue. I don't think we should hold up the ordinance that we have before us. I think it's something that maybe we add to our strategic plan or something like that, because I think it is all important. We all agree that it is an important thing and something that we need to tackle. I don't think it's easy. I don't think this whole thing, I don't know if I remember, because it was when I first started to get involved in the town, this whole thing had to do with modernizing the regulations for like lifts, which is what it does. And which is something that we all are agreeing on. It's all the side things that we thought were maybe good to do are the ones that we're getting like hung up on. So I'm in favor of moving forward with the regulation that we have here in front of us. But before we move on, I want to open it up for public comment. So anybody want to make public comment? Yes.
Well, I'd like to applaud Ingrid for her patience with this whole process.
Yes.
And also the process and all the discussions and everything that took place. And my thanks to Commissioner David for bringing up some of the concerns that I've expressed over time. As been pointed out by the mayor, I think passing what you've got is reasonable. I think, as you've recognized, it leaves several important issues unaddressed. And that may well be appropriate for now, but we still need an opinion. I just can't do it. I wrote to Marshall again. I mean, I've been trying to look in a unskilled way online, looking for all the appropriate state regulations, and I find things that, to my unlawyerly eye, appear in conflict with each other that I can't make complete sense out of in terms of what the local community's responsibilities can be. I mean, it would seem that since we can enforce other setbacks, we should be able to enforce some sort of setbacks, particularly as they may relate to safety. So there's some things that I would still like us to consider if it's appropriate and legal for us to be able to consider them. And that includes the use of some of these floating docks, floating platforms, and floating other miscellaneous objects, really, that are in the waterways. And so far, there hasn't been a problem, as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe some unsightly issues, but there hasn't been any real safety issues so far. But with the rules as they are, there will be. There has to be, because right now, one's allowed to put the end of their boat right up to the property line. If two people have their boats on the property line, sooner or later, they're going to bump into each other because boats move. They're already in our little turning basin. I can think of two lifts where if someone exercised, if their neighbor exercised their right to put something on the property line, their neighbor's lifts would become completely inoperable. These are things that we may not want to address. The town may want to just let the neighbors fight it out, kind of. But they probably should be addressed in some of the rules and regs. So once we get a legal opinion, I think that really needs to, and it'll be a whole process again, but it really needs to be reconsidered from a sightly issue, a safety issue, and to avoid problems amongst neighbors, if nothing else, in the future as we go forward. And I mean, for me, that's about it. I'll confess one thing. I know I'm running short on time here, but I have some concerns just given previous performance. I'm very big on the advisory boards that we have, and I applaud all our residents who've put tremendous amounts of time and effort into attending meetings and doing what they feel is the right thing. I got very concerned when the planning board really out of nowhere came up with a unanimous recommendation to get rid of setbacks. And because of that, even though it's come back and, you know, you guys didn't move forward with it, it concerns me about whether we have people in decision-making processes who, while well-meaning and everything, may or may not know enough about the particular subject that they're dealing with. And that can be for everyone. It can be with me on the financial advisory board. But in this instance, they're the people that are granting variances and everything else. And I guess it's up to staff to give them the appropriate advice and everything. And it wouldn't have been a concern of mine up until that 0 lot recommendation came out of nowhere, as best as I could tell, as an official recommendation for you to put into legislation. So it's just a concern, and maybe a one-off, et cetera, but it's a concern that I have. Anyway, thanks for all your effort on this. It's obviously everyone's put in a lot of work, and I think that once this presumably passes, that you need to give it a second round to look at some of these topics that we've discussed, but really which have not been definitively addressed. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Tim Rotolo, formerly 3400 South Ocean Boulevard. Family was there for 25 years and then recently moved over to Boca, but I have some friends who feel this is a pretty hot issue, and I was just curious if you can elaborate on the lifts as far as what the height is, if you approve this, or anything else, or do we need to look to the packets to see what that is? Thank you.
Ingrid, could you do a brief summary on?
Okay, so the maximum height for accessory marine facilities, the commission agreed with the planning board's recommendation, which would be a maximum height of, what would be base flood elevation plus 8 feet. And I mean, would you like me to go through all of that?
No, that's good. I
Okay.
think that was really the
Okay, that
question.
was the
So
question, yeah.
thank you very much. Any other comments? Any more discussion among the commissioners? If we're all in favor of moving forward, I'd say let's make a motion.
I move that we approve an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 6, Buildings and Structures of the Town Code of Ordinances by amending Section 6-125, approval required for bulkheads, seawalls, retaining walls, and required notification of abutting property owners.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And, okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 9, consent agenda. There are 3 items in the consent agenda. Does anyone require any discussion? And if not, we can have a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Unfinished.
Unfinished business. Continued discussion of fiscal year 2024-2025 strategic priorities plan update and the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yes, thank you. So I've captured our last project from our last meeting, put it into the complete strategic priorities plan. I've also folded in the CIP, the 5-year rolling CIP for 24 through 29, along with the accomplishments from 23, 24. So I've kind of expanded a little bit as we talked about kind of merging the 2 documents together. So that has been complete. So you could see what we've completed in our strategic priorities and what projects in particular we have. Again, we have 4 operational categories, if you will. Organizational excellence. Let me turn this here just to public infrastructure and resiliency, community safety, and community enrichment and sustainability. And that's how the 26, from what I just heard, maybe 27
Yes. add
strategic
that.
priorities are broken out. So that gets assigned to departments. Departments collectively work on deploying those projects and achieving outcomes related. And then we have the CIP, which again is the rolling program. We've made the adjustment, so that's there. So with what I heard, floating vessel platforms, what I would recommend at the moment, because it still seems a relatively hot topic, Mr. Rubin will be coming on January 21st with his legal opinion. One way to keep an attorney going is keep him on docket, right? So he agreed that he can meet that date. So we'll keep going. So what I'm thinking is SP8, which is Marine Accessory Structures Ordinance Amendment. As that concludes, I will move
Sounds
floating
good.
vessel platforms in its place at its same rank because of its importance, and we'll continue that conversation. And that strategic priority will slightly evolve into like a 1A, 1B kind of idea. That way we don't have to re-rank it, and it seems to be still holding some concern with the community that it would give it that scoring, and we should be able to begin addressing it with Mr. Rubin's legal opinion to kind of define that scope. But this is the program. Again, this is, I think, year 4, so it's going along. We've achieved a lot of items. CIP is the new component. I've received some emails that the FAB wants to chew on the CIP a little bit and take a closer look and give some constructive feedback to staff and the commission on the CIP and how projects are handled. So we're going to start doing that with them starting in January. But the strategic priorities there, we continue to achieve the goals and the projects that are set out by this commission. And we've had some really great success and we'll continue to do it. But this is the scored grouping. So at this point, you could approve it. Again, it's a dynamic. It'll come back to you with changes and updates. But right now, this is what you would say formally our current fiscal year structure of the strategic priorities for staff. We tend to work on all of them, but just when time crunch comes and resources, those kind of rise to the top and maintain the focus.
Any just additional discussion on the priorities?
I reviewed it, looks fine to me.
I agree with everything you said and replacing special project 8 with the floating vessels. And I agree that it is a top 10 priority and excellent to have the FAB review it as well. I think that is definitely an appropriate thing to do. And I look forward to their input on that. So do you need a motion for us to approve it?
Nope, I've got my marching
Okay.
orders. We
Think we all
are
approve?
marching
Yeah.
orders team. So we're good to go.
Excellent. Okay. New business, development order application number PZ 24-4, Daniel Edwards. So we have an application by Tolly Pappas, Randall Stoft Architects, requesting site plan approval for a new 3-story, 2-unit, 5,217 square foot per unit townhome development with a pool and spa for the property located at 4306 South Ocean Boulevard. And so I believe the planner. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, sorry. Do any commissioners have any ex parte communications to disclose?
None.
No, none of us do. Yes. So then at this time, I now open the public hearing. Town Planner Ellen, please present the application.
All right, I know the commission doesn't get too many site plan.
Yeah.
approvals.
Sorry, a
Single
little
family
stumbling
homes,
there.
right. That's typically approved by the planning board. But given this is a multifamily, there's a planning board recommendation and then final approvals with the commission. So I thought I would just start off with aerials, typically what I do with the planning board. The aerials do start on page 312 of your packets. This is all in your agenda packets. So here you have the property right there at the corner of Bel Air and South Ocean Boulevard. Here you have the front of the property looking westward. And here you have the rear of the property looking eastward. The request, as just indicated, this is again, a site plan approval to construct a new 3-story, 2-unit townhome development with pool and spa. Each unit will have 5,217 square feet. Each unit has 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, and 2-car garage. Currently, there's a single structure at the site. There's currently 3 2-story townhomes, and obviously the applicant is proposing to demolish that. In the residential multifamily zoning district, obviously you can have a townhome development. And I've also provided on page 307 of your packets, the definition of multifamily dwelling, which includes a residential building containing 1 or more units. Now I get into a little bit about the density. So when you do the density calculation, which is the lot size divided by an acre, and then you multiply that by the maximum density that's permitted in the zoning district. That maximum density is 6 dwelling units per acre. So when you do that calculation, they can't do more than 2 units. So they currently have 3, but based on the current code regulations, they can do no more than 2. I also talk a little bit about the side corner yard. I provided the definition of side corner yard in our code. And lo and behold, this particular property is one of the exceptions. So when you look at the legal description of the property, they are block 1, lot 19 of Bellito. So they don't have to comply with this side corner yard setback, which is typically the front setback. And for RML, that RML zoning district is 25 feet. So they're an exception to that. So they basically default to the side setback for the RML zoning district, which is 12 feet. Now we'll go ahead to the slides regarding the plans. This is again, the 11 by 17 plans that are in your packets. This is the cover sheet. It's actually a rendering of the front of the house or the multifamily dwellings, I should say. Here you have the survey of the current property. Here you have the site plan. I know it's a bit hard to read from here, but you could see that both of the units, pretty much mimic each other,
Mhm.
right? They're exactly the same. Here you have the first floor. Second floor. Third. Here you have the roof plan. And here you have the renderings, again, the front and the rear renderings. And now we start with the elevations. This is, and let me get my glasses. Well, I have them on, but I can't see from over there. Let me see which ones these are. Bear with me 1 second. So we have the front elevation on the top, which is the east. The side elevation on the bottom is the north. On the top here, we have the west elevation, the rear, and on the bottom is the south elevation. Here you have landscape plan. This is illustrated. And here you have the hardscape plan. This is, again, the landscape plan without the colors. These are some of the details with regards to the landscaping plan, what plants are going to propose, planting, so on and so forth. This is the irrigation plan. And the details with regards to the irrigation plan. And this is a tree disposition plan, which calls out which trees are going to be keeping and removing. The applicant is not proposing any changes to the landscaping in the Florida Department of Transportation's right-of-way. If the commission recalls, we have an agreement, right, with FDOT. It's a landscape maintenance agreement. And typically when someone puts landscaping in the right-of-way, FDOT's right-of-way, I should say, it triggers an amendment to that agreement. Yeah, you all have approved several amendments through the years. But that is not triggered here. The applicant has made it clear they're not making changes to FDOT's right-of-way. However, they are proposing a new driveway, which is why they need a town right-of-way permit from the commission. That is the next item on the agenda, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to it. So as I already mentioned, because it is multifamily, there is a final approval from the commission. If the request receives town commission approval, the applicant will be required to obtain a building permit prior to initiation of construction from the town of Highland Beach. Pursuant to section 30-21G, commencement of construction shall be initiated within 2 years following the date of approval by the town commission. And staff has reviewed the proposed requests, including plans, date stamp received by the building department on October 24, 2024. It finds that the project is consistent with the town code of ordinances as it pertains to site development. On page 308, I have the recommendation from the planning board. As I indicated, they did recommend approval. We have the applicant's agent here today, Mr. Charlie Pappas, to address any questions, and I'll be glad to address any questions as well.
The only thing I would request is that they make sure that there's proper drainage on the sides of the driveway, the new driveway, because that's been a concern in the past.
Right, so in your packets, you have a drainage plan. I didn't put the slides because you just can't really see the details, but they are in your packet. The drainage was reviewed by the town's consultant. We have a drainage engineer with CAP Government. They meet the stormwater regulations that are in our zoning code. So drainage, again, signed off from our drainage engineer.
Okay.
And Greg, a question on the sidewalk. Do they have to leave the sidewalk in, or can they just do the driveway out? Because I noticed some up in the north end, they have their driveways out, and when you walk on the sidewalk, you go on their driveway. So do they have to leave the sidewalk in, or can they?
Yeah, again, they have a permit from FDOT, so FDOT is okay with that. I mean, you see that, right? You have the
Right,
driveways,
right.
you know, so long as they don't manipulate the actual sidewalk. We've had some residents try to manipulate the
Drive-
sidewalk and FDOT is like, you know, you
No.
can't touch it. But yeah, again, when we get into the town right-of-way permit, you'll look at that permit details, exactly what they're proposing in the site plan. So, yeah.
The design looks great.
Mhm.
Much improvement. Thank you.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, I am overwhelming in support of this project. It's really gorgeous and will be a huge improvement from what it is today. It will be really incredible. And I really like the way the density calculation worked out. I mean, in my opinion, this is exactly what I would like, going from 3 to 2 units. I think 5,200 square feet, that's phenomenal.
Mhm.
The design is just beautiful, contemporary, the direction the whole neighborhood is going. So I think this is excellent. This is really excellent. So at this time, the applicant may make a presentation. If there's anything you want to say, I know you already made a presentation to the planning board. I don't know if you want to come.
It's fine.
Good afternoon. Not so much of a presentation. It was basically Ingrid that presented the project. Just got up to answer a few questions that some of the residents had.
Oh, okay.
Name and company.
Oh, sorry. Can you state your name
Yes.
and what you're
Joey
representing?
Pappas with Randall Soft Architects.
Excellent. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the commissioners, do you guys have any questions for the applicant?
No, I saw the presentation.
Mhm.
Planning
Yeah,
board. I thought-
it's very good. Yes. And if there are any members of the public who would like to comment on this application, please come to the podium, provide your name and address. Any public comments? No. Any additional questions, comments, or anything? Okay. So the public hearing is now closed. If there is a motion to approve, can we do that?
I move that we approve development order application number PZ-24-4/Daniel Edwards.
I'll second that.
We can have a roll call, please.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
and Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So I guess now we consider the request for a Town of Highland Beach right-of-way permit for the property located at 4306 South Ocean Boulevard. So now we discuss the driveway.
Yes. again, that's the corresponding right-of-way permit. I did put some references here on your staff report or your staff memorandum on page 351. We do have a provision in our code, section 25-1, that is unlawful to construct improvements within the public right-of-way without first obtaining a town right-of-way permit. The commission, some of you may recall, back in 2021, you approved a resolution. It's actually 2021-041, which requires town commission approval for any right-of-way permits of construction of improvements in the state road A1A right-of-way. And this approval is applicable until the Triple R project is complete. Once the Triple R project is complete, those town right-of-way permits will be administratively approved by staff. So, I've gone ahead and referenced the permit number that they received for from FDOT for the driveway connection permit. If you flip through that permit, you'll see the site plan, right, with the one driveway going over the sidewalk. Again, these are the plans that will mimic exactly what we just approved in the previous site plans match. And as I already indicated, the applicant is not proposing any changes to the landscaping. Again, I'll be glad to get some questions, Mr. Thomas as well.
Yeah, so the whole purpose we did that was so that you were aware that the Florida Department of Transportation is doing the project, but now you can't miss it. So you definitely are aware. So, okay, so if we could have a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the request for Highland Beach right-of-way permit for the property located at 4306 South Ocean Boulevard.
Second.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
and Mayor Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to items. Thank you very much
Hey,
for
guys.
attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution number 2024-035, a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach supporting the procurement and oversight of consultants for the development of a county-wide transportation plan, supporting the formation of a technical advisory committee for the same, and providing an effective date.
So there's a lot of letter soup in here that what IPARC is and the technical committee has been the county-wide tradition is to come up with a new acronym for every great idea or group. But basically what is going on is in a big picture for everyone to understand is the county commission charged the county administrator and staff to begin to develop the RFP and process by which we're going to select a consultant to do the countywide transportation plan. It's never really been done. And it's something that needs to be done based on, you can see the whereas clauses, but basically growth, road congestion, development, and it's not slowing down anytime soon here in Palm Beach County. So the time came for the county commissioners, and I think most communities agree to start planning out for the next 50 years. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay for it? What makes the most sense? And for the first time, which I think is kind of monumental, the county has reached out to the local communities through its city managers to come up with a process where we can help craft that RFP, review which consultants, and to help craft the outcomes that we want to see, because there's 40 municipalities in the county. So we generate about 75% of the revenues. So they're finally recognizing that and putting us at the table with them to develop this. And one of the ways in which we're going to go through and vet this is through the IPARC, which traditionally has been with Ingrid, where we do plans, comp plan changes. They're going to have a little bit more of a technical twist to it, whereby we can participate in it. Again, as a small community, not a huge role for us in this, as you would imagine for the Boca, the Delray, Palm Springs, Royal Palm West. They're going to have a bigger role, bigger road systems, and how do we integrate that? Palm Beach Gardens, which has been very proactive in planning and transportation planning. So it's finally a chance for all of us to kind of come together. They let us sit on a group to help develop the RFP. So I think we're building some bridges and no pun intended on that, building bridges, but working to develop the relationship between the local governments and the county on these bigger projects and initiatives. So that's what this is showing the county administration. We're on board with this concept to get us engaged, to be part of that conversation and our neighbors, because we depend on that transportation system as well. So this is just kind of our way to say, yep, we're on board. Let's do this. Let's keep that momentum. And I'll provide updates as it moves through. The RFP has been developed. That was done in relatively closed room process, just because I didn't want the RFP hitting the streets early and then certain consultants have a running start. So they did a very quick review in a quieter environment after a managers meeting where a select group met and worked their way through that. And again, the group of city managers that did work on that, outside of our friend Brian, were in bigger cities with a lot of background in engineering and transportation plan. So that expertise was deployed, and we're developing what I believe would be a good RFP to get a consultant on. And then working with the consultants to ensure they're not just thinking about county thought process, but county-wide thought process and the municipalities. What are our needs? Where do we see it going? We each handle transportation a little bit differently. And the bigger picture, which is when we really will jump in, is how are we going to pay for this, right? And a lot of conversations have been had on a countywide transportation tax. The discretionary sales tax disappeared, I believe, and there's a lot of belief that what comes out of this RFP transportation planning will lead to what supplants that discretionary will be a transportation fund or tax fund, where that same half a penny or possibly up to a full penny will go to just transportation. That's where I would think our concern would be, is who gets the money, how is it distributed, and for what purpose? And again, a lot of the goals to date have been multimodal, not just roads, but pedestrian access, public transportation, bicycles, sidewalks, how all of that is. So the good thing about that is that we'll ensure, again, while we're a small piece of it, that some of those generated sales tax funds will come back to us to take care of our sidewalk, our road, our bridges, and so we can have a means to do that in the same fashion. So that's down the road, but I think that's what's driving some of this, that we stay at the table. Otherwise, it's just going to go to the county, and our concerns, the county is going to keep it for county only. We want to make sure there's some equity in that distribution of funds to get to some of our other multimodal needs here in the county.
Any comments? I think it's good for us to participate.
Yeah.
I think this is a move in a good direction of opening communication lines, just even for, developing the relationship just generally going forward. I think that is really good news that the county has asked the municipalities to participate. We all feel the brunt of transportation issues. I support this. I don't know if there's any other comments.
No, I think it's a wonderful idea that they invited us to the table, and therefore we need to show up.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
So you need a motion to approve the
Yeah,
resolution.
please.
Okay.
I move that we approve resolution number 2024-035.
Second it.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to town commission comments, Commissioner Don Peters.
I just want to wish everybody happy holidays, and we had a great 75th anniversary mingle jingle, and it was glad 1,500 people. And I don't know what Jason and Marshall is going to do next year. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so they must have to plan right away for it. And thank you.
I second that. It was really a wonderful party, and all the comments I heard were positive. People loved it. And I wish everyone happy Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and healthy and happy New Year.
Great event. I wish everyone also a happy holiday. And just a quick update on what I talk about each time, and that's the electric vehicle stations. We put in for a permit, I guess is approved. Huh? We were starting, and then within the next 2 weeks, installing the stations, and I'll keep everybody updated on what happens and the effect and the reactions, et cetera.
Yes, Mingle Jingle was a huge success. I keep getting positive feedback about what a great time that was. And it was really nice to meet firefighters and police officers and, all the other booths. That was a really good idea. So yes, thank you to everyone who was involved in putting that together. That was excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much. And Town Attorney.
No, ma'am. Happy holidays, happy new year. Just piggybacking on the vice mayor's comment, and I meant to send these to y'all. The state is coming out with rules. Recently, they preempted municipal regulation. I feel like there's a new preemption every meeting of electronic vehicle charging stations, and I'll send you those, or I'll make sure it goes to staff so they can circulate it so you can see those. Right now, they're still in the rulemaking phase. But that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Town Manager.
Yes, quick call out to Officer Pitty and Officer Leal, who did some crime busting for us. We're able to apprehend a thief who committed some crimes. They did a great job without any information, getting to the final outcome of recovering said products and putting the perpetrator behind bars. So good job to those two officers, which only gives reason and lead to, that's why we're number 3 place to retire on the East Coast in the United States. If I sent that forward to you earlier today. So this is why that is number 3 is the focus on public safety. It does allow us to do that. Mingle Jingle, thank you for the comments. Where my superstars, Madison, Skender, they did a lot of heavy lift along with Jamie. Father Horrigan thank you. I know he's not here. I'd give him a big hug. I mean, thanks to the church for allowing us onto their property. I always joke with him, into your backyard to throw a big party. So again, that went very well. I hope the expectation is we're not doing 1,500 to 2,000 person parties. It was very stressful. But we're gonna, debrief afterwards and kind of see what went well, what didn't. I wish it was smaller so I could talk to people more. I didn't get the sense to see a lot of the folks I wanted to, because every time I pivoted 20 degrees, somebody was there with questions, comments, and just general happiness though, which was good. I didn't hear, knock on wood, any real concerns or complaints. Maybe we do this a little bit better, maybe this, maybe that's fine. But everybody was happy. Everybody had a good time, smiles. I mean, we ran out of food, but that's just because it was so popular and everybody was there. So, I mean, it was great. Again, the staff did a marvelous job. I couldn't be more proud. Again, the church, great things. Other than that, peace, love, and happiness, and everyone's Christmas and Hanukkah. Happy New Year. This is great. I look forward to getting refreshed and recharged with everyone else to tackle the 2025 when we'll all officially convene for our next business item. So true blessings to all those out there, and thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. So moving on to announcements, we have a couple of board vacancies, Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We have a vacancy, Code Enforcement Board. We have a vacancy. Upcoming meetings and events, January 1st, Town Hall is closed for New Year's Day. January 14th at 1 p.m., we have our next meeting of the Special Magistrate. January 16th, we have our next Planning Board regular meeting at 9:30 in the morning. January 20th, Town Hall is closed in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And the next day, January 21st, we have a Town Commission meeting at 1:30 p.m. There are no board action reports. And with that, we can